Hi, welcome back to another video feature of the Immersive Worlds Handbook. Today we are at Henrikson's Poplar Trees Mall in Tahoe City, California. I want to take you on a tour of this interesting mall that has certainly gone through its changes over the years. So let's go around and take a look. Now, when most people think of Lake Tahoe, whether it's the South Shore or the North Shore, you might have a view of something like this in terms of the expectations. The sights, the sounds, the sensory, experiential aspects. So I think for me, looking at the Poplar Trees Mall and seeing what you see, and I apologize for the shaky video, though I think in some ways maybe it adds to I think what I'm talking about in this video. But when you see the site here and think that this is a part of pristine Lake Tahoe, you might indeed have some questions. So in doing this video feature, I was inspired to think about the issue of heritage and whether or not ultimately this site should be saved. Should it be revived? Should it be turned into something else? As you can see in its current state, it's in need of some work, I think. You know, just honestly, over time, the site maybe hasn't stood up as well as other sites. You see even here this statue, which looked almost to be burned to me. One of the things we'll talk about in the video is the curious juxtaposition of materials, the almost haphazard approach to building that Henrikson and others took upon themselves when they created this space. And in fact, I read that some of the upper floors have been cordoned off, that local city leaders have deemed it to be unsafe in terms of some of the balcony spaces. So I know you can lease a retail space, and this was some information I found online. It was interesting in talking about the property. They said it's the famous Henrikson building built for the 1960 Olympics, now under new ownership. Street frontage, signage available, as-is condition. Interesting, you know, the as-is designation there. When you go to this site, and I'll show you some of the stills, it certainly has an as-is look to it. You look at some of the colors, the decisions made, I think, about the construction. You see there are a few businesses that are certainly open, but it has a very curious appeal to it, and at some level I think we might have the opposite reaction and start to scratch our heads and say there's something very curious about the Poplar Trees Mall. Now, if you're interested in researching this site, there isn't a lot out there. Moonshine Inc. has done 3 really good articles about Oliver Henrikson, his legacy, what he tried doing years ago in terms of his local contribution to the local history. Excellent details, actually, and if you're interested, go online and just look up the Moonshine Inc. and you can type in Oliver Henrikson. They talk even about a business, a Thai restaurant. When they reopened, I guess they had to do hundreds of thousands of dollars of renovation just to get the restaurant up to code, and here's a image of it today. You can see, and this was, I think, in 2017 I shot this. And then one more article in the paper that talked about one of the surviving daughters of Henrikson had passed away in 2012. And the significance of this was it left some questions open about the inheritance and whether any of this would be fought over in court. So I'm a little unsure as to what the status of the mall is in 2017. I've heard rumors that maybe someone would buy or has purchased it and would take it over and basically remodel it or maybe raise it and then put in something new. If you know the North Shore of Lake Tahoe, you know this is very prime real estate. I would say worth millions depending on what you decide to put in here. Certainly if it's a hotel project, restaurants, whatever, potentially a lot of money. So, you know, that has its own value to the community, of course. Now, the other side of it, as we're looking at some of the status of the structure here, is some people might say, strangely enough, in terms of heritage, there is something very unique about this site because of its owner, its former owner, its late owner, because of its connection to the Olympics. You see the bulletin board here. Nothing seems really updated here. It's kind of interesting when you look at the spaces. There isn't a lot of I guess you could say there's not a ton of curb appeal, right? When you look at some of the well, yeah, just like anywhere, right? And you might have, I think, that sensibility about it. Now, again, the other side of it is the heritage side. So let me address that now as far as how we might consider the Poplar Trees Mall in a heritage perspective. And so to me, this context of heritage was one of the big inspirations in terms of looking at this mall. Now, I'm currently working on a piece on heritage as remaking, and so I wanted to discuss this with you. And I thought I'd actually read a little excerpt from this piece because it's very relevant to what I'm talking about with the mall here. And this is from a section of the writing that is called The Service of Heritage. So here is that writing now. In the small resort town of Tahoe City, California, is the curious O.M. Henrikson Poplar Trees Mall. The mall was built in the 1960s by the eccentric libertarian figure Oliver Henrikson, who, in the 1950s, imagined a resort motel that might accompany the 1960 Winter Olympics that were held in the nearby Squaw Valley, California. Over time, Henrikson modified his plans for a motel and instead began a different project, a multi-tenant shopping mall. As such, his project was nothing remarkable. Yet, as he worked to imagine his vision in a material sense, he eschewed traditional design practices and worked in the style of a bricoleur, assembling what he could with the materials available. Henrikson added unapproved and illegal structures to the site, including an indoor swimming pool, much to the chagrin of local commissioners who battled the builder in court and in the realm of public opinion. The mall is nothing short of a construction palimpsest. Mismatched beams, odd juxtapositions of colors, layers of repurposed building materials, blocked passageways, and construction shortcuts, many of which are nothing short of hazardous. The mall relates to other such spaces that have an eccentric approach to design and use, and that rely on a handmade bricolage approach to construction. Robber's Roost Ranch in Inuacuren, California, Juan Pollo's Route 66 Museum in San Bernardino, California, Tio's Tacos in Riverside, California, Dr. Evermore's Forevertron in Sumter, Wisconsin, and Harpal Villa in Singapore. As of 2017, many years since the passing of Henrikson, the mall sits in inheritance limbo. Many locals look at the mall, which has become even more dilapidated over the years, as an eyesore, a place that contrasts greatly with other European-themed properties down the street. There have been only a few members of the local community who have argued for the designation of the mall with a landmark, historic, or exceptional status. In the public debate about the property in a local newspaper, one such person expressed that the mall and its architecture was worthy of official designation as a heritage site, to which many others expressed strong negative reaction. Presumably, unless more locals express the rather subversive statement that the Poplar Trees Mall, due to its relationship to the Olympics, its eccentric local builder, and the uniqueness of the design and construction choices, is worthy of preservation, the mall will be raised to make way for a much cleaner mixed-use site, full of chain and branded stores that will no doubt lack authenticity and heritage. The fate of the mall reminds of another key orienting question for this study. Should heritage save? And if so, what should it save and how? Okay, and from that newspaper article I mentioned in the Moonshine Inc., this is one of those comments that talks about the designation of the mall as some sort of having a landmark status, and you can see the first sentence here is the person's opinion on this. Now again, this is not the norm, but it was interesting to me that there were at least a few people who saw this as something remarkable, perhaps worthy of heritage, and this is one of the reasons I consider it in my writing on heritage, because I think many times we have a skewed vision of what heritage is or what it should be, which sites should be saved, which ones should be raised and turned into something else. Now again, it may be the case that the local city, depending on the buyers of the site, decide to raise it and to make more money to turn it into some fancy hotel or branded multi-use retail outfit store. But if that's the case, do you lose some of the character? I mean, a lot of people actually maybe wouldn't say the mall is charming, but it has character. It has a sense of identity and even, perhaps ironically enough, a sense of authenticity. And authenticity is one of those issues that I delve into in this study I wrote on heritage, and one of the reasons I decided to pick Henrikson's Mall as a particular site of study. And so as we look at the mall and its fate, I thought we could at least take in some of these images. Again, I think there's a lot to see here. It's something you wouldn't typically see. If you compare the Poplar Trees Mall with, there's a really nice European-themed mall just down the street, it's quite a contrast. And certainly locals have opinions on the mall. Tourists have opinions as well. You certainly have to say that it has incredible uniqueness. A site like this, I think you wouldn't typically see anywhere, really. Even this image there with the fence that's blocking going up the stairs. The interesting feature here, there's like this dome, the sunroom, and the story behind that was Henrikson had put in a swimming pool, and you can see over time the roof has collapsed a little bit, but like many other things, he didn't get permission to do this. I actually looked as close as I could inside, and I couldn't find the photo or video I had, but there are actually like boulders. Oh, you can kind of see them there. If you just look straight ahead between that pane of glass and the frame, you can kind of see the boulders there. So there are boulders inside. I don't know if the swimming pool ever got completed, if it ever was functional or not. You see some of these walkways that just go across the buildings. There are businesses here, and more power to them, right? I mean, they need an opportunity to have their businesses in a place. I don't know what the rates are for renting and so forth. There's that stairway again. And you find, again, just this odd approach to construction practices. Things are taped and tied on. You see these beams, like there's a metal beam there, and then there's a wood framing around it. Really, really, really curious. You see another image there, this from a different angle. Some of the pipes. It appears like there are actually electrical lines going across, if you can make that out on the bottom right. And being held up with some sort of rope. Again, just very, very, very curious. Now, a different project, if you've seen, there's an air conditioner there up top. If you've seen Tio's Tacos, if you've seen the Juan Puello museums I'm referring to, there's a different purpose there. Like in the case of Tio's Tacos, oh, there's that really good image of it right there. So the metal beam, which is twisted to the side, I'm not an expert on construction practices, but it seems to me like there could be something a little bit concerning here. This is interesting, this hallway. Straight ahead, it's blocked off. I don't know if there are businesses or people living here. See another shot of it there. There's a really big winter this year in Lake Tahoe, so these pictures were shot after some of that big snow. I wanted you to see some of the textures here of the walls as well. But with Tio's Tacos, what I was saying was that there's a different purpose, right? You're trying to use bricolage and folk art to do something different. And I was actually hazarding an idea that maybe this represents folk architecture. So just think of all your mental constructs that you have of folk art and apply those to architecture. Apply those to a shopping mall. It's as if someone who was a bricoleur, who was a folk architect, decided to create a mall, and this is the legacy of that mall over time. Some of the choices maybe over time you could see things have worn in some ways that haven't been generous maybe to the structures, but in some ways it makes it all the more interesting. And I go back to my earlier question about heritage. If we're going to say that this is not a site of heritage, why is that the case? What sites out there, unlike the Henrikson Poplar Trees Mall, could be deemed sites worthy of heritage, and indeed worthy of the service of heritage, as I've suggested today, worthy of saving for future generations to consider. I hope you enjoyed the video feature today here at the Henrikson's Poplar Trees Mall in Tahoe City, California. Please come back for additional video features of the Immersive World's Handbook.